Okay. What indicators might suggest to you whether someone is likely a Christian or not? Okay, now I know that there are no judgmental people in this room. But I want you to talk to your neighbor, 2-3 minutes. What indicators might suggest to you? Because we all do it. Oh, surely he's not a Christian. Right? Not right. That's not happening. Is it Greg and me? And Tracy, have I got anyone else? Anyone else? Tony? Tony's in? Anyone else? Anyone else? Tefu? I know, he's okay, we'll get back to Tefu. Anyone else? Okay, so we do this. Why don't you talk to your neighbor 2 minutes? What are indicators for you where you say, you're standing from the outside, you're interacting with someone at work, a family member, God forbid we never do it with family members, and I'm not even talking about your direct people living in your home, but extended family. What are indicators that might suggest to you whether someone is a Christian or not? Why don't we talk about that for 2 minutes? Talk to your neighbor, tell them. Be honest. Because we are honest in our hearts. Let's be honest here too. Okay, have we more or less figured out the problems of the world? We have now divided your whole world into 2 camps, those that are Christians and those that are not. Okay, so indicators, what might suggest to you whether someone is a Christian or not? So for me, growing up, the indicator would be that someone would believe in Jesus. Okay, that they are a believer in Jesus. They believe that Jesus forgave their sins, and because of that, they cannot go to heaven. There's no way for them to go to heaven other than believing in Jesus. And then, over the years, as people helped me and taught me, I moved more towards this position of a Christian being someone where Jesus is Lord, meaning master, kyrios, of their moral behavior. Okay, so a Christian definitely does not smoke. A Christian definitely does not use bad language. So when I'm in the presence with someone, working with someone, a relative, whoever, and they're swearing, clearly, they're obviously not a Christian. Right? Okay? Because their moral behavior, they're sleeping around, they're getting drunk, or they are just drinking too much, or there's a number of, they tell bad jokes, what have you. A number of things where you say, okay, well, is Jesus Lord of their moral behavior? Another one would be, is Jesus Lord of their time? And notice, who are the true Christians? The true Christians are those where Jesus is Lord of their time. They don't just go to church on Sundays. In some form or fashion, they go to church every day. Okay, these are the people that they're having quiet times, they're in the Bible, they're part of Bible talks, family groups, midweeks, all kinds of things. Then obviously Jesus must also be Lord of their purpose, that they're not living for themselves, they're upholding the Great Commission, they want to be fishers of men, they want to make disciples of all nations. These are the Christians. Then he's also Lord of their character. Okay, whatever Jesus wants me to become, I want to become. And then last but not least, and this is not necessarily completely comprehensive, but that he would be Lord of their time and money, talent and money, because obviously we love money. Who of us loves money? Okay, who of us does not love money? Okay, well, we got to say it. Money makes the world go round, okay? It is, we can say we don't love it, but we need it to function. So is Jesus Lord of that? Is he Lord of my money? Is he Lord of my talent? He's given me certain gifts. Am I using it for my purpose or his purposes? And somehow, again, historically, I've looked at this, all of this is somehow connected to the idea of commitment. There is a commitment to Lord of, Master of my moral behavior, how I spend my time, my purpose, my character, and my money and my talent. Okay, and then obviously, if this is, and I've grown that far at least, that don't perceive God as taking photos of your life, but more of a movie of your life. And if the movie of your life, this has been the movie, and the end of time comes, then the lift goes up. Okay, and then obviously through the years, I would sit with people, and when trying to help them see that maybe Jesus is not Lord of their life, he's not Lord of their moral behavior, what have you, then maybe the lift goes down. Possibly. So, My question to us today, as we are studying the grand narrative of the Scriptures and the story of the Bible, and as we're looking at the big pictures, is it possible that things are maybe more nuanced and varied than commitment, than to Jesus being Lord of my moral behavior, my time, my purpose, my talent, my money? God forbid, should we say, is it more gray? Even my understanding of Christianity for most of my life has been gray. There's no gray in Christianity. There's no gray in the Bible. There can be no gray in your life. You're right, you're wrong, you're in the light, you're in the darkness, you're a Christian, you're not a Christian, not a half a Christian, maybe a Christian, sort of a Christian. You are it or you are not. Here's what I realized. As a religious world, we tend to build or create our own categories as to how serious sin is or isn't. We choose. We choose what moral behavior we think is right or not. We choose when we think the lift is going up or when the lift is going down. We then project our choice back on the Scriptures and then say, but that is what the Scriptures are saying. But we actually create it easily. So, what have we learned so far in the grand narrative of the Scriptures and the story of the Bible? Is there something maybe more to it than moral categories, than the way that I spend my time, what my purpose is, or my money, my talent? Is there maybe, this might certainly be inclusive, but is there more to it than that? And what we have learned so far, obviously in Act 1, we have gone as far as literally Act 1. Someone said to me this morning again, please don't do an hour recap. and I did say to Francesca, I did say to her, listen, there is a reason for it. I literally want to instill it in our hearts and minds to think bigger. And that we so easily just go back to what we know that we don't want to expand our minds. So here's a bit of a recap of Act 1. Creation and the human calling. So historically we have said that I have personally looked at it that Act 1 was God created a perfect world. But we have now learned in time, obviously reversing back, in that perfect world then the fall came when we broke that world, or Adam and Eve broke that world by sinning. But what we've learned so far is that in the ancient world, people viewed temples as a microcosm of the cosmos. So there was temples were viewed as a space and a place, a sacred meeting point between the divine realm and our realm as we see it and know it. We can call that in our language, heaven and earth. And so when we then read Genesis chapter 1 and we look at that account, we can ask ourselves, is Genesis chapter 1, and I don't want to go much into this because it will cause controversy by itself, but is Genesis chapter 1 an historical account, or is it trying to tell us something more at the backdrop of how ancient people thought? And that we see in Genesis chapter 1 that out of chaos, God creates a beautiful garden, the Garden of Eden. But why? What is the purpose of this beautiful garden, real or not? Meaning as an historical event or as something explained, it is a sacred space, the Garden of Eden. Sacred space. It is, as we've said before, almost like a cosmic temple, a place where heaven and earth could meet. A place where there would be a connection, as the ancient people believed, a connection, and I mean, this is hectic if you think of it, a point of intersect between the divine realm and our realm. And it's not that heaven is up there and now that heaven comes down. And no, heaven, God's realm, can be right here in front of us. We simply can't see it. And then Eden is saying these two are now overlapping, and on the seventh day, God would take up his rest in Eden. Not taking his nap, as we said, but his rest from where he would rule and reign. I want to say the universe, but bigger than the universe, from which he would rule and reign his space, the divine realm, and the earthly realm. I mean, this is next level stuff. Now, what we also realized in Genesis chapter 1 that this cosmic temple, this garden that God created was good, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't tamim. It wasn't complete. It was incomplete. purposefully, God created an incomplete garden. So the Garden of Eden, is not meant to be like a picture on the canvas where we can take a look at the Garden of Eden and say, oh, how pretty, oh, how beautiful, oh, how perfect. I'm watching The Notebook. There we go, good movie. Oh, it's so sweet, and oh, sure, wow, it's beautiful. I mean, I could just stare at it all day long until Adam and Eve obviously messes it up. But no, I can say it's just so, it's so beautiful, isn't it? Don't you also just want to just look at it all day long? That's why we're here. We can just look at this picture till we have communion. Okay, we realize no, there's more to it. It's incomplete. There's a project. We can call it a plan, Project Eden. Okay, what is Project Eden? Where is this Project Eden, supposed to go, and how will God get this project, this garden, to become complete? Move towards completion. And we saw that what he does is he creates Adam, humanity, and Eve, life. He sets them in the garden as his image, his icon, his Tselem. What is their purpose? We learned that Tselem is like an idol, that we are a representative of God as an idol, a statue with the purpose of communicating, reflecting, embodying the presence of God, and obviously of Jesus wherever we go in our interactions here, at work, at home, driving the car, sitting on the taxi. That's what God wants. The image must reflect Him everywhere, starting with Eden, branching out. But that the image will also be a place of guidance, because as we saw in the different temples, that people would go to the temple of Marduk to seek guidance through the idol of Marduk as to what they must do. And in the same way that the image of God, the people of God, will be people who seek His guidance, but then also is able to give that guidance to the greater world. They will then be reflected back to God in worship, where people would say, and I'm sure I'll speak about it a little bit later on, where you just say, thank God for, I don't know if you've ever done that, man, thank you, God, for this person in my life. Thank you for this interaction of my life. And sometimes it's a complete stranger that gives you a random act of kindness, and you thank God, you worship God for what was given. And then we saw that obviously He said, and therefore, and then be fruitful, subdue, and rule as the image. Do the work. Expand the garden, not just spiritually, physically. Build a flourishing community where His image, His life, His glory, not necessarily a word that we can always relate to, but His splendor, His beauty, His kindness, His love, His peace, everything would permeate every corner of our being and wherever we go. Project Eden. So, now, again, talk to your neighbor. What would it look like for you to be a Christian to embody the image of God? So first we had that discussion. Is there anything that changed from your first? I asked, how would you determine or assess whether someone could be a Christian or not? And if we take into account what we've learned so far about the image of God, what would it look like for you personally, to embody the image of God? How do you think you can do that? Even in this week to come. Image you. Okay? Do you want to chat to your neighbors? Teenagers as well, same deal. Image. How do I image? Sure, how do I do that? How do I reflect that presence, that guidance? Okay, how about this question? Why don't you tell your neighbor how you would like them to be the image of God in your life this week? Now we've got the conversation going. Okay, I'm only kidding. Okay, you can do that at home. This can cause marriage conflict, parental issues, and because there we all have the answer. Okay, all right. So, what I want to talk about a little bit before we move to Act 2 is, what does this look like? Now, I'm not talking about high grade. We'll start with standard grade. Back when I went to school, you had maths higher grade and standard grade. Now it's called maths lit and pure maths, or maths pure, I'm not sure. So pure maths, high-grade maths, would be how to be the image of God is love your enemy. But we're not ready for that. Okay, so we're not gonna start there. We'll do maths lit. Okay. So Genesis 1:28 says, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. He blessed them. Somehow I've missed that word before. I've seen it and not seen it. The word bless is barach, almost like Barack Obama. Okay. It's barach, which is divine favor. God, you could say, poured out his divine favor on them. And then be fruitful, increase in number, fill the earth, and subdue it. So he enabled them by pouring out, by blessing them, by pouring out his divine favor on them. He enabled them to embody his presence, his guidance, his wisdom to the world that will end up in worship to God. So how do we do that today? What does this look like? How can I be the image? A number of years ago, I read a book by a life coach, corporate coach. I think his name was Marshall Goldsmith. How this guy works, how he does his job, is he only coaches CEOs of companies, presidents of boards, what have you. And then what he does is he works with you for a year. And then he only gets paid after that year if you got better. Okay, so works with you for a year, only gets paid afterwards if you get better. And the way, obviously, how do you measure this? So what he would do is he would find out, obviously, someone hired him. The board hired him, the executive team hired him to say, Joe's got a problem, these are his problems, what have you. Then he surveys the people that work with him, the people that he reports to, if so, let's say the board, his executive team. He surveys them and getting an idea as to how is Joe doing on different areas of life. And then 1 year later, he surveys the same people again and then see if the answers got better. And then if it does, he gets paid. So I said, here was the fascinating thing. He says most executives, their biggest challenge is obviously relationally. They've got the plan, they've got the vision, they know what they want to do, but the biggest issue is relation. He says, here's what he's worked on. This is the number one thing that he works on with corporate executives. In one line. Stop being a jerk. He says, that's it. He says, not you don't have to be warm and fuzzy, just shush. People would love you a lot more if you just shush. But as soon as you open your mouth, you hurt relationships. Because you're aggressive, you're not thoughtful, what have you. And so if he could get the guy to just shush and be happy with shushing, people would rate them a lot higher. And the whole feel of the company would change simply because this guy was shushing. And obviously he had to shush in his heart as well, meaning that he had to realize, I don't have to have an opinion, I don't have to say something, just shush. I don't know about your being kids or in your own home, but one of the things that has happened in our home, in the pastoral home, is that sometimes the kids would just at each other. I'm not sure if it happens in any other homes. They would say this or say that. And then we would ask them this question, is it helpful? As simple as that, they blurt out something. You're wearing my t-shirt. Is it helpful? Who said you could wear it? Did you eat my chocolate? You got more than I did. Is it helpful? I ended up saying to them this little thing where I said, okay, so, let's think about this. What you just said there, is it helpful? Now, obviously, as you can imagine, that came back to me, where in time I would say something and then my kids would go, Then I go back, is that helpful? Is this helpful? Sometimes being the image is as simple as asking yourself, is it helpful? And sometimes we we look at moral behaviors as categories instead of thinking it's actually a subcategory. And the question is what I'm doing helpful? And like I said, we create our own view and interpretation of what we think sin is and isn't. And I was saying to Karen this week, I said to her, you know what, I've got an idea how to I've got an idea how to illustrate this, and I see she's now in fear that I'm actually going to do it. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull out a cigar, and then I'm going to light it. Now, I've not smoked in 30 years, okay? And I'm going to smoke the cigar, and let's see what the audience does. She said to me, listen, the facial expression once said no. What came out of her mouth was, she said, listen, those pastoral care nominations are going to roll in a lot faster. But then I said, you know what, isn't it true, though, that it would not just be true of me? Let's say we watch in the fellowship here, Asanda goes out and he lights up a cigar. Will that go unnoticed? Will someone say something, either to him, to me, to people close to him, and saying, what's wrong with Asanda? I mean, he's clearly lost his way. He's crossed a moral category. God forbid, what would happen if I swore from the pulpit? I know of a minister in our fellowship, I don't know how it came out, but he did a communion or something, and something slipped out. He said the word and then he walked off. Unacceptable. If you're part of our fellowship, I can tell you now, and you now swear in the fellowship, wasn't that a sermon? It's going to come back to you. Someone's going to say something. It's a moral category that's broken. Is it helpful? Is it helpful if I'm swearing from the pulpit? Is it helpful to me or to others if I smoke? Do we enjoy sitting next to smokers in the restaurant? Is it helpful? No. Is it helpful if I gossip? Do you gossip? About people in church even. Surely is. That pastoral care team will fire me in a heartbeat if I light up a cigarette. But will the same be done if we gossip? What if I'm just one of those people that never stops talking? Completely self-consumed. I walk into whatever scenario I'm in, I just talk. No one else gets in the word. I talk. Completely self-centered, completely self-consumed. So not imaging. Is that helpful? If I'm insecure and I project my insecurity onto you and I become manipulative, is that helpful? Or is it not? What will make the world better? Less smokers? Or less self-centered, gossipy, manipulative people? Less people that swear, or less proud people? What builds the garden? Everything that I do most probably falls into one of three categories. Either it's helpful in building the garden, or it does the exact opposite, and it breaks the garden down, or it's somewhere in the middle, which usually leans to one way or the other. So when I am gossiping about someone in the fellowship or whatever, I'm breaking down the church and the garden. I'm not building, I'm breaking. If I am self-centered and projecting my stuff onto the world around me, I'm breaking, not building. When I'm just giving, I'm building, and I'm not breaking. So sometimes we want to make it into moral categories, which are actually, as I said, just subcategories of what's much more important. Is it helpful? So here's what I want to ask us as we go into this week and this year, whatever it is. See these two little hands in your mind. Every time before you speak, before you do, to a spouse, to a colleague, to a friend, just ask yourself, is it helpful? Secondly, what builds the garden? Small acts of kindness. Pure maths. Maths lit. Not pure maths. Pure maths is love your enemy. We're not there yet. Small acts of kindness. As I've shared before, I have started an online business selling furniture of all things. Okay, so I had a couple of weeks ago, I had a elderly lady, well, she's 79, approached me. She's looking for a console table, and so she comes to me and can she see the console table? And I show her the console table, and now she's asking questions about the console table, and she's starting to tell me about her life. And I'm thinking, pronto, 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 pronto. Church work to do as well here. What's the things going? Hello, 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 hello. And then I ask myself, And I ask, garden, 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 garden. How can I be the garden, 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 garden? There she is, garden, garden, garden. Time, time, garden, time. I can't remember, most probably even was working on a lesson on the garden. So I said, you know what would it mean for me to be the garden? A small act of kindness. Give her the time that she needs. So I decide, you know what I'm going to do, and this is so unlike. I decide, you know, I'm going to pull out a chair and I'm going to listen. So she starts telling me about her husband passed away a month before. Horrid. Her second husband. So I said, sure, second husband. Yeah, they were together for 31 years. Second husband, the first husband? Now she starts telling me, now, I felt, honestly, this was so enriching. I felt like pulling out the popcorn. She sat there for an hour and told me her whole life story. The most fascinating woman. She has started like 10 businesses. All of them succeeded. From the most random things, but I felt like, man, where's my popcorn? I just want, and I said, okay, so was this husband number 2? No, that was with husband number 1. Okay, so with husband number 1. And then the kids, with the kids husband number 1, and no, the kids there. And then what happened to this kid? And you know what, she sat there for hours, she didn't eat anything. But I walked away from that time and felt, you know what, I felt better about myself. I felt, you know what, that cost me nothing but time. It's a small act of kindness. I don't know if it changed her day. It certainly changed mine. I learned a lot about her. I learned a lot about older people. I thought all of them should write a book. Because when you're 80 years old, you have a lifetime of experiences and stories that the rest of us can just marvel at. An act of kindness. That's all. An act of kindness. A small act of kindness. If you, as a teenager, you can do an act of kindness to each other, to a friend, to someone at school who no one else wants to hang out with. It's an act of kindness. A small act of kindness. You don't even have to become besties. An act of kindness builds the garden. Withholding an act of kindness breaks the garden down. Another one. For about a year now, I have been working with a web designer that's built my website. And she is an exceptional and phenomenal woman in so many ways. She built the site, but also keeps on evolving on different means and levels. She was her birthday yesterday, or the day before. Yesterday. I think she turned 63. Okay, my web designer is a 63-year-old. She is a feisty, thoughtful, hardworking, spectacular woman. She's been so helpful to me, I've actually asked her to look at the church website as well. So, okay, our website's a little bit old. How can we zhuzh it up? I am in communication with her either every day or every second day for almost a year. I've never met her. We've never physically met. She lives just down here in Denver. I saw her once in a Zoom meeting. Otherwise, we chat on WhatsApp or we chat on the phone. And so one day, I said to her, her name's Barbara. I said, you know what, Barbara? I literally thank God for you because you have been so incredibly helpful to me on this journey, on me trying to build something and helping me. And she said, you know what, Werner? You are on the top of my prayer list where every day I thank God for you. She said, number one thing, I thank God for every day is you. I'm thinking, me? Checking on WhatsApp, is this the right person? Do you have the right person here, lady? And she said, you know what? You have brought stability to my life. We don't talk about religious things. I was thinking, how on earth am I bringing stability to your life? But to a large degree, I was too afraid to ask because I was afraid she was going to say, oh, sorry, I thought you were Joe. But as time continued and we talked more, what I realized was it was simply sincere interest. As basic as that. I'm interested in her. I feel like she's helping me. How can I be helpful to her? And conversation about her life, about her grown children, about anything, when she's not feeling well, whatever, is literally just as basic as sincere interest. Again, I'll ask you, what will make the world a better place? What will make it more garden-like? Less smokers or more people sincerely interested in others? What will make your home, your family group, your workspace, the church, a better place? Something as simple as sincere interest. And you know what? It's maths lit. Anyone can do it. It doesn't take much to simply be sincerely interested. So, Jesus told a parable. We want to change the world. And that's one of the big reasons I became a part of this church 30 years ago, is I saw a group of people who wanted to change the world, who wanted to do big things. He told them a parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, small, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree. So the birds come and perch in its branches. Where did it start? A small seed. He told them still another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took. Yeast, a little bit of yeast, mixed it into about 60 pounds of flour until it worked its way through the whole batch of dough. Maybe the things we have to do isn't that big. Maybe it is as simple as, is this helpful? Maybe it is a small act of kindness. Maybe it is simply being sincerely interested in people. And as you and I continue down that path day in, day out of our life, sowing these seeds of kindness, of interest and helpfulness, it will work through the whole batch of dough. And we will be able to be a part of God's garden plan. Amen. God bless.